When we have developed loving kindness towards ourselves, we can wish other living beings to experience the same. It seems that after so many centuries of loving kindness practice being taught and followed in Theravada Buddhism, there has developed a special progressive method. This progressive method leads the student gradually from a focus on specific people all the way to the ultimate, all-encompassing loving kindness for all living beings without any distinction. I have learned this progressive practice from my master in Sri Lanka, who learned it from his master. Visuddhimagga encourages choosing only people who are still alive. Loving kindness is not very effective for those who have already passed away. Also, select only people of the same gender as you are to keep lustful thoughts at bay. Visuddhimagga also suggests that we do not start with the unfriendly, appreciated, neutral, or even the hostile. We are encouraged to radiate loving kindness to our teacher. Now suppose you are a lady and your teacher is a man, or you are a man and your teacher is a woman. In such cases, it would be inappropriate for you to choose your teacher because they are of a different gender. Suppose your teacher is of the same gender, but you know too little about him or her and keep a neutral attitude. Therefore, in the beginning, select several people that you appreciate. Choose 5 people that you appreciate, who are still alive, and of the same gender as you. All of these 3 requirements should be fulfilled for each of the 5 people. It may be your parent, child, sibling, friend, teacher, student, classmate, co-worker, employee, boss, or monastic, or anybody else. Select such people who, if you met them after a long time, would evoke feelings of joy. There are people in the world who cannot find even a single person who they would appreciate. If that's your case, start with animals or babies. You can, for example, choose your favorite animal, a puppy, a kitten, a rabbit, and a baby that you held in your hands or that you saw in a picture. You don't consider their character. Think of the feeling you get when you have them close to you and happily in your arms. You can work with an individual of each kind if you've recently encountered it, or with each kind in general as all those who belong to it. Because the need to select animals and babies is relatively rare, I will explain the practice as if you have selected people. For those who have selected animals or babies, the practice would be same. After selecting the 5 people you appreciate, withdraw into an appropriate environment with the appropriate attitude and decide on 1 hour of sitting meditation. Keep a clock in front of you, a little bit to the side, straighten your back, tilt your head forward, and keep your eyes slightly opened so that you see the floor in front of you. When ready, you make the determination, from now on for 60 minutes, I will be meditating on loving kindness without any movement. I will exit any attainment right before anything or anybody would need my attention. Divide your 60 minutes of practice into 6 parts, each 10 minutes long. In the first 10 minutes, relax and establish yourself in peace, repeating the phrase, "May I be happy" or "May I be at peace." Dedicate the next 5 sections of 10 minutes each to each of the 5 appreciated people that you selected prior to your meditation. For example, if you are a man, you select your dad, brother, a classmate, your uncle, and a male friend from your neighborhood. If you are a woman, you can select your mother, sister, a classmate, an aunt, and your best friend. When selected, do not change either the people or the order. Dedicate each of them 10 minutes. You can repeat the same phrase for each person, but change the person. An example for men would be, "May my dad be happy." An example for women would be, "May my mom be happy." Choose one phrase that you will use throughout your practice. If you decide to use "be happy," it is not good to change it into "be peaceful." As I have implied earlier, the phrase only anchors you to the practice. Be careful to concentrate on the meaning of the phrase rather than on the word. As soon as you feel you can focus on the other person without the phrase, simply drop the phrase and concentrate directly on the object. When you finish your 60 minutes, make the determination in your mind, "From now on, I will always be mindful and shine with loving kindness." Change your sitting posture to your secondary style and take a few minutes to enjoy the peace you've gained. Then stand up and practice another 60 minutes in walking. If you are walking, find a comfortable place to sit and take another 60 minutes in sitting. Meditate this way in sitting and walking 60 minutes per session, as much as your teacher or circumstances allow. Now I will mention a few peculiarities in detail how to interact with the meditation object. When you practice loving kindness for yourself, you didn't imagine your face, you didn't think about your good qualities, and you didn't think of enjoyable experiences you've had in the past. When you radiate your loving kindness to another person, you may imagine their face or think about their good qualities. However, for some meditators, imagining someone's face in their meditation leads to paranoia. Thinking about someone's qualities may also lead to discursive thinking, or even to thoughts about the person's deficiencies. Therefore, meditators would do better to imagine the person's face and think of their qualities only in the beginning, if they find that helpful. The peace is radiated to allow the person's body of 4 elements and his or her mind of constantly changing consciousness to be supported by it. You could then ask, if I think only of their body and mind, why do I need to choose the appreciated people? Aren't all living beings the same in this respect? In fact, even if you focused only on the body and mind, your subconscious attitude toward those people would affect your practice. Therefore, in the beginning, we choose the kind of people who, as objects of loving kindness, would support our practice of peace. Nevertheless, the intention is to see all living beings as the same, because that will allow you to radiate your most genuine loving kindness also to the most difficult living beings you ever encountered in your life. By allowing the constantly changing body and the arising and passing moments of the mind of the specific person to benefit from your peace, you gradually approach the understanding that he or she is only a body and mind, just like all other living beings. You can gradually understand that you, your parents, your friends, elephants, ants, monks, politicians, beggars, mosquitoes, etc. are totally same by the fact that they consist of a body and mind. Your object of loving kindness is therefore not the specific person, but the nature which exists within all living beings, their constantly changing material body, and their mind, which consists of billions of mental impulses per second. If everybody is to be taken as the same, then how do I distinguish the selected 5? You will use their name or their relationship to you. For example, my dad, my mom. You also distinguish them by the fact that their body and mind is disconnected from other person's body and mind. There is no person who could live with 2 bodies or 2 minds at the same time. When you choose an apple from a heap of identical apples, the apple that you chose becomes different from the others by the sheer act of choosing it. In the same way, the person you select for loving kindness is different from all other people by the sheer act of choosing him or her. See if you can feel as happy as when you are with the person in a nice restaurant, on a beach, or walking by a forest path. At those times, you also do not make effort to make yourself or the person in peace. The same peaceful feeling that you have now can be permitted to the person, so both of you enjoy that feeling the way it is now, without any effort. Later you can abandon the concepts and focus on the reality of the person's body and mind. Although you work with the other person as a body and mind, remember that their body is separated from its surroundings by skin, and that both their body and mind are specific, continuous streams of causes and effects. And you are same. Both of you are same by the impermanence of your bodies and minds. Both of you need to eat. Both of you are worthy of love. Both of you will have to die one day. Allow the other person to experience your present positive state and just enjoy the fact that both of you can experience it. The other person may be affected by your loving kindness, but most probably won't be. It would need a very, very deep level of loving-kindness concentration to affect the experience of another person. By radiating loving-kindness to the other person, your own joy will grow. Permitting another person to be in peace will bring about peace in yourself, in addition to the peace you have already. This way you grow your peace, and later joy, into a psychic power. A decent level of concentration created by this practice can be later beneficial in Vipassana, the insight meditation methods where body and mind are observed separately. Most important is, however, that the meditator gradually realizes that the nature of body and mind is ultimately same among all beings, let alone the 5 chosen people and yourself. Although the object of meditation here is loving-kindness, some yogis unknowingly breathe rapidly and heavily. Although you do not observe your breath during this practice, it is a mark of your mindfulness that you would notice abnormal breath. The practice of loving-kindness is done correctly only if your breath is natural, calm, and soft. Check the breath. If it is coarse, relax your muscles from head to toes, or observe the mind for a while. Once the breath calms down, return to the loving-kindness practice. If a thought arises, such as worry, discomfort, restlessness, or anything else, the meditators may observe those mental states until they disappear or become uninteresting. If meditators force skillful states, they become victims of greed, and if they push away unskillful states, they may become victims of anger. Therefore, meditators remain equanimous toward all mental states, without expectations, without desires or aversions. Unskillful mental states arise in your mind because you are not mindful enough. When they arise, be mindful. Observe them the way they are, impermanent and poor. They will disappear as soon as your mindfulness is sufficiently powerful, or when you remove their basis, which is craving. By detaching themselves from all impermanent things, the skillful states naturally increase, and the unskillful states decrease. When the mental state, different from the meditation object, has either disappeared or has become uninteresting, the meditators can return to the relaxation practice until they regain their pleasurable state for themselves again. Then they can focus their loving kindness towards the person according to their schedule. In case of falling asleep or getting lost in a thought for a long time, you might miss one of the scheduled people. When you regain mindfulness, note the time left and dedicate an equal amount of it to the remaining people. For example, you would start with 10 minutes for yourself, then continue with 10 minutes for your dad, but before you finish your dad's 10 minutes, you would succumb into thinking for 30 minutes. Upon regaining mindfulness, you would realize that 20 minutes remain. In that case, you divvy up the remaining time equally for the remaining people, in this case, 5 minutes for each. In another example, you would start with 10 minutes for yourself, then continue with 10 minutes for your dad, and then switch to 10 minutes for your brother. Before you would finish your brother's 10 minutes, when you regain mindfulness, you realize that 10 minutes remain. In that case, you divide the remaining time equally for the remaining people, in this case 3 minutes for each. Although you may feel peace in the beginning, as the practice gradually progresses, you may learn how to improve the experience of peace into powerful, unconditional love. Remember that sitting, walking, standing, and lying down are all good postures for practicing loving-kindness. It is particularly important that you also speak and act with loving-kindness whenever you deal with anybody. After practicing sitting and walking, dividing each hour into 6 portions, 1 for oneself and 5 for the selected appreciated people for some time, when the concentration is well developed, the meditator will experience powerful happiness, strong joy, perhaps accompanied by interesting bodily sensations. These sensations are different from person to person. Most common is tingling or vibration on the skin. If this happens while focusing on any one of the 5 people, it is advisable to keep focusing on that person without changing to another one even after the 10 minutes, until the experience of powerful loving-kindness disappears or becomes uninteresting, or until the end of the hour. If the powerful loving-kindness disappears before the determined 1 hour of sitting or walking, divide the remaining time equally to the remaining number of people. The meditator can then consider the time and intensity of that powerful experience. If this reoccurs during the next sitting or walking meditation, the person should be removed from the 5. We are talking here about the 5 stages of joy gradually developed in the concentration practices. I will explain more about these 5 stages in Lecture 18. The person is removed because of the purpose of this practice. In this practice, the purpose is not to attain jhana, a deep meditative absorption. Instead, we learn in order to gain the ability to focus and refocus on any object of our will. It is good if you attain jhana. However, try to train in the flexibility of concentration rather than chasing jhanas. Flexibility in concentration is achieved by putting aside meditation objects which are well developed and working with objects that have yet to be developed. Let your concentration grow into intense feelings of joy in one of the 5 selected people. This happens naturally, without expectations or exertion. In fact, the more you allow the peace to do its job, the more you drop all your expectations and just enjoy your peace, the faster your concentration will develop. Your subconsciousness will choose which of the 5 will be the first. When that happens, remove that person from the group and divide the 60 minutes of meditation into 5 segments, keeping 10 minutes for yourself and giving around 12 minutes for each of the remaining 4. Train your concentration until you attain the same experience also with one of the remaining 4. In the course of meditation, an intense feeling of joy from permitting another person to experience peace will naturally develop in your mind as you are concentrated on one of the 4 people. Remove the person from the group after the sitting or walking session when this happened. The time of meditation will then be estimated for the remaining 3. Continue this way until this practice has been completed for all 5 people. You will learn to radiate immensely strong loving kindness for 5 appreciated people to the same level, understanding that all of the 5 are worth loving kindness and all are ultimately the same among themselves and the same as oneself. When you have completed this practice for the appreciated 5 people, choose 5 neutral people. Practice in the same way, training your concentration and loving kindness for each of the second 5 to the level which was achieved with all of the first 5. When you have achieved strong loving kindness with all of the 5 neutral persons, as you gradually remove one by one, after some time none remains. Then choose 5 hostile or unfriendly people and train with them. The late great Burmese master Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw suggested that training in patience is particularly helpful in developing loving kindness towards hostile and unfriendly people. In Buddhist literature, we commonly learn about patience as a gauge for noble people. Just like loving kindness, patience is also one of the perfections, parami, abilities that are perfected on the way toward enlightenment. As I have mentioned in Lecture 7, the voluminous guide of meditation teachers, Visuddhimagga, explains 10 ways to contemplate in order to abandon ill will. They are reflections on the fact that becoming angry leads one astray from the noble path, the danger of one's birth in hell due to one's anger, the good qualities of one's enemy, observing one's anger as harming oneself, the fact that one's anger will only hinder one's progress on the noble path, the previous birth stories of the Buddha where he kept calm in the face of his enemies, the fact that one's enemy might have been a caring family member in one's past life, loving kindness practice in terms of its numerous benefits, the enemy as being just a continuous flux of body and mind, thus avoiding the concept of their personality, and giving them a gift. First, the yogi may remember the Buddha's words. Monks, even if bandits brutally severed limb after limb with a two-handled saw, he who engaged in hateful thoughts in his mind because of that would not be one who carried out my advice. In other words, the Buddha suggested to his students, not only monks, to keep calm in any situation. The second way of contemplating is to consider the birth in hell due to one's actions against the enemy. A yogi may wish that the enemy be ugly, in pain, have no good fortune, not be wealthy, not be famous, have no friends, or after death be born in the realm of hell, animal realm, or ghosts. Such ideas may cause yogis to engage in thoughts, speech, and actions which can lead them to hell when they die. The third way of contemplating is to attempt to find any, whatever good qualities in the enemy. And if no qualities are to be found, then it is possible to think of the results of their karma in the future, either in hell or when punished by the king or government to such an extent that we would pity them anyway. The fourth way would be observing one's anger as harming oneself. Anger arises in the mind to the detriment of one's mind. Observing anger as an unpleasant mental process dependent upon attachment and ignorance may help the yogi to abandon it. Moreover, one's anger might be the aim of the enemy, so getting rid of it is already a kind of victory. The fifth way of contemplating the detriment of ill will is the realization of its impact on one's path to wisdom. Attachment conditions anger, whereas detachment conditions the path toward wisdom. Following thoughts of anger will bar any progress toward wisdom for the yogi as well as the enemy. The sixth way is to think of some of the Buddha's birth stories, where he, as a Buddha-to-be, kept calm regardless the advances of his enemy. Among such stories would be Mahasilava Jataka, where the Buddha-to-be as a king remained without any anger even when an enemy king kidnapped him, buried him up to the neck in the ground in a cemetery, and committed adultery with his wife queen. In Kantivadi Jataka, the patience of the Buddha-to-be as a hermit was tested by a jealous king, when the king cut off his limbs. In the Chula Dhammapala Jataka, as a young baby prince received all of his mother's attention, which led to the order of a jealous king to chop off the baby's limbs and head. The baby Buddha-to-be was free from anger. There are also birth stories where the Buddha-to-be is narrated to have been born as an animal, tortured by greedy hunters. In the Chaddanta Jataka, he was an elephant with beautiful tusks. When challenged by a hunter, he willingly allowed the hunter to take them. In the Matuposaka Jataka, he was again an elephant, here forcefully brought to the king as a new royal elephant, void of freedom and far from his beloved blind mother. Even so, he stayed free from anger the whole time. In the Mahakapi Jataka, he was a monkey who, although almost killed by a hunter, still showed the hunter the way out of the deep forest where the hunter was lost. Then as a snake in the Sankapala Jataka, he patiently withstood the cruel treatment of 16 village boys. The birth stories of Bhuridatta and Champeya narrate how the Buddha-to-be in his previous lives was born as a large snake and misused by snake charmers, but still kept his calm. The seventh way to contemplate this is to think of the relationship to the enemy in a past life. The enemy could be your mother, father, brother, sister, son, or daughter. Imagine the different ways in which you benefited from the enemy in a past life when they cared for you. The eighth way is to contemplate the 11 advantages of loving kindness as explained by the Buddha in the Mettā Sutta of Anguttara Nikaya. I have explained them in the first part of this lecture 8. The ninth way is to realize the ultimately impersonal nature of one's enemies. They consist of the 4 elements of their body, namely solidity, cohesion, temperature, and motion, and the fourfold flux of feelings, perceptions, intentions, and consciousness. The enemy's body consists of different parts, such as hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, bones, bone marrow, and so on, all of which are undergoing a continuous transformation. Enemy's mind is just consciousness arising and passing away billions of times per second. If so, then who is the recipient of your anger? Nobody. The body and mind of your object are continuously changing. They are different every moment. The target of your anger is nowhere to be found. The 10th way is to give a useful, valuable, appreciated gift to the enemy. The scriptures suggest that this way all annoyance with the donor will perish and the anger of the recipient will subside as well. Mahasi Sayadaw also suggests that you can enter any one of the 3 levels of deep absorption, jhana, for an appreciated person, and upon emergence from the strong absorption, there should be no difficulty in radiating loving-kindness towards a hostile person. If the meditators are also able to permit peace into their selected 5 hostile and unfriendly people, they can train in developing the skillful state until it is at the same level as it was with the first person of the first 5. Proceeding one by one through the 5, they gradually accomplish even the 3rd set of 5, thereby mastering several skills. First, they are able to radiate loving-kindness to any person regardless of their qualities or circumstances. Second, they understand that despite the diversity of living beings, all of them are ultimately same. Third, they can focus their mind on any object of their will and easily concentrate. And fourth, they are accomplished in the so-called satte suupekha, the equanimity toward all living beings, also known as Sammāsambuddhassa, breaking the barriers of distinction. This means that they understand the truth of ultimate sameness in all living beings. From this point on, it is appropriate to meditate on loving kindness for all living beings without distinction. You can spend your hours of sitting and walking meditation by starting with a few minutes of relaxation and peace for yourself at the beginning, then dedicating all of the remaining time to the boundless, all-encompassing loving kindness for the entirety of living beings. If you wish to silently recite a phrase to anchor you to the meditation object, you can use "May all beings, including me, be happy," or "May all beings, including me, be in peace," or any other such phrase in a language of your choice. But again, decide only for one phrase. The idea of universal peace is not of the form of space. It is perceived in time. Some meditators imagine their peace glowing outwards from their bodies. This may cause problems because those meditators may worry about the time needed for their peace to reach all living beings. Some meditators may worry that wall, trees, and other hindrances will obstruct their glow of peace. Therefore, I do not recommend that you imagine you are shining. Although I use the word radiate for the loving kindness practice, it is not to be perceived as filling the space. Rather, you understand that at the same time all living beings, including you, gain more and more peace according to the intensity of your permission. Think of a city with many houses and many people in those houses. Suppose you are standing on a hill in the middle of the city, or that you observe it from a skyscraper at the time of dusk or sunset. You would see that the little windows of the houses all over the city start glowing in the light, as if the people turned it on. You didn't do anything. You were just standing and watching. Some windows get light, some don't. You accept the fact that some windows get light and that some don't, and do not worry why. In the same way, as we are radiating loving kindness for all living beings, we just let the peace appear in their minds, if it can, right at the moment when we permit it. We do not worry if nothing happens in some of the living beings. In fact, we are equanimous to the real experience of the living beings. We just enjoy how the peace gradually turns on in the minds of those living beings who can accept it from us. This turning on is instantaneous. It doesn't take any time. You do not imagine any shining or filling of space. Just allow the living beings to enjoy peace at the same time as you do, while you enjoy the perception of more and more, firmer and firmer peace, increasing in you and all others. This perception of growing peace may be likened to the experience of a gradual heating up of the air by a heater in a previously cold room. Or otherwise, it is like the experience of lowering the temperature by an air conditioner in a room formerly hot and stuffy. When you finish your 60 minutes of sitting or walking meditation session, remember to make the determination, enjoy your peace in your secondary posture, and move on to the next session. In contrast to equanimity towards all living beings, satte su upekha, there is also sankhara upekha, equanimity toward all conditioned things. It is a quality attained by Vipassana, insight meditation. The practice of loving-kindness can be used as a tool and support for insight meditation, Vipassana. It creates a conducive environment, lasting patience, and enthusiasm for the path. Let me illustrate this point. Suppose you have a coconut tree in your garden and would like to pluck some coconuts for you and your family. One option is to climb the tree using your hands and feet without any ladder. But if you are like me, it will be very difficult for you to climb, very exhausting, and also very dangerous. However, if you can climb the tree all the way up, just by hands and feet, take the coconuts and return without any injury, then this is the best way for you. It is like when people want to purify their mind and instead of starting with samatha, a concentration practice, they start right away with vipassana, insight meditation. Without the basis of concentration practice, it is very difficult to observe the mind and body, and when there arise strong defilements, the meditators may get overwhelmed by them. After that, they prematurely leave from their meditation retreat, or in some cases even become mad and have to be treated in mental hospitals, because they were not sufficiently ready for the Vipassana technique. Some meditators, however, have their necessary concentration abilities developed from past meditation practice, or perhaps even from a past life. They will practice insight meditation without any concentration practice experience and have fantastic results. Now suppose that instead of climbing that coconut tree right away, you will go a bit aside, gather some sticks and ropes, and make yourself a sturdy, long, firm ladder. In Myanmar, people make 3 ladders for climbing a coconut tree. One for the lower part, one for the middle part, and one for the highest part. While you are making your ladders, you have not climbed the coconut tree at all. But when the ladder is made, you attach it to the trunk of the tree, and then you can comfortably and safely climb the tree up, pluck as many coconuts as you wish, and comfortably and safely climb down. It is like when the meditators spend some time with a concentration practice, for example, the practice of loving-kindness. While developing loving-kindness, the meditators do not make much progress in observation of their bodies and minds, but they create a safe meditation environment for themselves, support the harmony in their community, and strengthen their enthusiasm for and happiness from their meditation practice. If you come to that level, you can create a subconscious trigger for loving-kindness, which you may use whenever you might need it. Every day, 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening, you can determine, whenever I encounter anything unpleasant or unexpected, first of all, I shine out powerful loving-kindness and stay entirely pervaded by peace. Thanks to your ability to concentrate on the loving-kindness object, you can also observe your body or mind without any disturbance, difficulty, or even worry about your mental defilements. While you deal with your defilements during the insight practice, you can apply your power of loving-kindness and that way happily continue all the way up to the attainment of the ultimate purity of your mind. If pursued intensively for some time, the loving-kindness practice can lead up to the 3rd level of absorption, 3rd jhana. The nature of absorption will be explained in Lecture 18. In the next lecture, I will explain the practice of compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity, which are, together with loving-kindness practice, known as the 4 sublime states, Brahma Vihara.